It's and adapt as we drive towards value addition. So, Aulyn, you are the best person to be talking to about this topic.
Value, and you're basically buying a relationship. So it's something that I grew up doing. But over time, I also realized, or rather the people who were around me at that time as I was growing up, realized that I had a natural skill to understand the way of bees. Okay. So it's what the Western world calls bee whisperers. Okay. So that means I can tell when bees are sick. I can tell bees that are harmless. I can tell maybe if these bees do produce honey, there are other bees that don't actually produce honey at all. Yeah, so maybe that's more of the things that will be in our incumbent research. Okay. So yeah, that's how I started beekeeping. But I formally made it into a business during the advent of COVID-19 in 2020. Okay. I'm still at University of Technology studying marketing in my final year. But during that time, because there was a total economic shutdown and people had to go home, apparently I'd been funding myself through hairdressing, students on campus. So the administration gave me an opportunity to start this project so that I would be able to help myself with funding my fees. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I was also now training other students who were in need and incapacitated. Mm-hmm. So to date, there's a few hives there at the University of Technology. So that's how it started as a business. Then over time, I did my internship at Urunga Road District Council, where I was training women in marginalized areas that have problems with elephants. So what would happen is, time and again, the elephants would come into the villages because of depleting trees. They'd now come into the villages and attack their crops and everything. So when I arrived at council during those days, they were using what were called chili bombs, and they were also using lethal weapons to ward off the elephants. Okay. So during that time, we came up with a biological fencing method. This meant that we could actually use bees to prevent elephants from crossing the boundary into people's communities. Right. So at the same time, in as much as it was a biological fence, it also means that these women who'd spent most of their time at home doing nothing were now getting a source of extra revenue. Yeah. And they were now also able to venture into a new type of farming, which is bee farming. Wow. Right? So, and then also at the same time, this meant that this was a natural organic method of protecting the village from elephants. It was a non-consumptive method. So it meant that maybe in ages to come, that area, especially the areas around Binga and Dotera village, would then become a tourist attraction. Wow. Because people are no longer killing the elephants as per se, right? So, yeah, and then during that time, the company was called Intiko Honey. It was still starting, but then as it grew, it's now called Nectar Honey. Wow. Yeah? So Nectar Honey now is a company that is basically focusing on the production of honey, training people, bee consultancy, bee removals as well, bee removals that are non-termination based. So this means that if you invite us to remove bees from your house or from an area where you're saying that these bees have become a nuisance, we don't kill them, we actually carry them and bring them to a new home so that they continue the honey production process, right? And then Nectar Honey is also focusing on value addition. As you said, we mentioned it at the end of the program. Then at the same time, I also realized the need to give back to a community where I grew up from, because now, I was very lucky to come to the city and my talent was recognized, but I was also burdened with the fact that I was coming from a rural area where nearly everybody can do this, but they don't know what they are capable of and what they're just wasting away. Yes. So I started my own initiative called Aulyn Makoni Foundation for Environmental Justice. So what it does is to promote some of these young women like myself in the rural area in Chinyuza Village 23A, is to encourage them, to train them for free so that they can also start this business. And some are now entering the business, some as wholesalers, some as basically just agencies, between buyers and sellers and everything. Some are actually entering the businesses to sell bee equipment like beehives. Okay. So that's another thing that Nectar Honey is doing. We also sell bee equipment That is bee suits, beehives, cage boxes, and everything. So the other thing that Aulyn Makoni Foundation does to give back to the community is that every term we try to pay fees for at least 5 students in primary school per term, right? So their fees are around $20, $10 to $20 on average. So we then cater for those students who are maybe not really bright in school, but they can't afford. Because most of the times when the donations come there,
they go for the bright.
They go for the bright students, right? But what happens to the other part of the generation?
Who are also having the same challenges as the bright students.
Definitely, yeah.
Wow.
So that's something else that we are really doing, and we're just really hoping that over time maybe we would get partners to make this thing big, and maybe it would then sprout to other rural and marginalized economies. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Excellent. I like the idea of giving back to the community.
Definitely.
Yes, and leaving no place, no one behind, by making sure that you don't only focus on the bright students, but as well as the average students. So obviously, having done all this and managing to train other people and managing to provide consultants where you can, what are some of the challenges associated with beekeeping?
Okay, thank you very much. So, you know, with this project, we are dealing with nature. And we are dealing with nature that is, how can I say that? It's not very predictive. So you would find that we have over 1,000 species of bees worldwide, right? In Africa, maybe we have the ones that are dominant around 7 to 10. So sometimes you may not be sure until it's too late that the bees that you have are mostly meant for pollination rather than honey production.
Okay.
And some are mostly meant for producing what is called bee pollen that goes towards treating respiratory diseases. So now, without adequate knowledge, you might end up producing something and actually throwing it away without knowing the value of it, right? And then you also need to understand that every year there are new infections coming up with these bees, and sometimes we only find out when we have already lost a harvest. And then in some areas we struggle with extreme seasons, whereby you'd see that if there is too much sunlight, then the bees are continuously evacuating their homes, and if there's too much rain, the bees are not coming out to produce, and then if it's too cold, the bees are dying. So, you know, we are still really trying to find ways to make sure that the bee cannot stop working. It is busy throughout the year. And right now we have come up with methods that we have been training our farmers in urban areas under an initiative called Everyone Should Be a Beekeeper.
Wow.
So you'd find that here in Harare, we have it's now over 55 bee farmers, people who are basically keeping bees in their homesteads, right? So now we were training them as to what they have to do when it's winter, how to keep the beehives warm so that the bees don't stop working. And then when it's moist, the flowers that they have to play around with that are seasonal, so that, you know, we continuously have a supply of honey. So this is also in the realization that, you know, we are in the ages of climate change. So you'd find that in Zimbabwe we have been hit hard by the impacts of climate change, particularly the rise in temperatures. So this means that our pollinators are continuously decimating. So this is happening to all of the global south. So in Egypt and in Israel, they no longer have pollinators, to the extent that they are now actually manufacturing honey in labs. So it's no longer organic. So you can just realize how lucky we still are
in Southern Africa.
Right. So we are trying to make sure that we harvest as many pollinators as possible, so that in the next 4 years we won't need to depend on hand pollination, which is something that we may barely not be able to afford as a country. So yeah, that is basically one of the initiatives that we're doing. And then also particularly we're introducing people to some parts of our new research that we're still working on. Some willing farmers have come forward to really try it. Some have been successful. Certain type of attractant that then smells like the queen bee. So even if you have a swarm that doesn't have a queen bee, it will survive because it will still operate as if there is a queen bee. Yes.
Okay. Wow. So now, looking at value addition, what are some of the initiatives you've started? I see you've brought here some honey.
Thank you very much. So, you know, under the initiative again of Everyone Should Be a Beekeeper, The reason why we are saying that is because we believe that everyone must want honey for something. So we realized at the beginning of the project, during the early years, right, that is 2020 thereabout, that when I was selling honey, there are some people who would then say, I have an allergy with for flowers, so if I then consume honey, I get all funny and allergic. So then we had to research which flowers affect them. So now we've actually come to understand that if they are affected by jacaranda flowers, it means they can take honey that of which the bees have fed on another type of forage, right? So we are now introducing new foraging systems whereby we can actually do paddocking for our bees, right? So some bees are particularly just limited to an area where they are feeding on gum trees and moringa, others on pepper flower, and others on indigenous trees or muomba, right? So when somebody is coming to buy honey, we are giving them a specific preference that is what they're looking for, that won't affect them. That's the first value addition process, which is just at raw material level. Then as we go deeper, we've also realized that there are people who are skin sensitive, who react to different kinds of soaps. So, you know, we came to realize that time immemorial, honey was actually used for embalming purposes. So if it can heal a wound, it can definitely heal your scarred skin, right? So we had a few young people who are living with albinism come forward to take tastes from some of the soaps that we're making. And they've actually been giving us positive responses to say that for the first time in all their lives, they can actually walk in the sun without actually applying sunscreen.
Wow.
Definitely. So right now we are basically looking for partners so that if this can get into the market, well, it should be adequate, it should be enough for the community of people who are skin sensitive and people who are living with albinism. Yes. So one of our ambassadors is actually living with albinism. And so right now, for those that don't afford to buy the soaps because they haven't been approved yet, we are just really encouraging them to use honey as it is. Wash up with honey, soak yourself up. So even, as you can see, I don't have foundation, but that's just how it works. So just after honey, you can buy any lotion of any type, even poor quality, and your skin would still glow. It just heals your skin naturally, right? And then at the other end of value addition, we're saying that when we are doing bee farming, honey is not the only product that is coming out. It's not the only raw product. We also have beeswax, or those comps, as you say. So beeswax is used for many purposes. That is for baiting the bees, the beehives, or hutea nyuchi, right? And then it is also used for making birthday candles, because then it is harmless even when it is consumed. It is also used to make hair products like hair food. And then so you'd find that beeswax actually fetches a higher price on the market than honey.
Wow.
Yes, because we are saying that on average, honey at wholesale is around $2.50 to $2.50 a kg wholesale. But then when it comes to beeswax, we are now talking about from $15 to $20 a kg. Then we also have what is called propolis. It's also another component that is produced by bees on the hive. So if you have seen those cobblers who fix shoes when they are sewing, there's this black stuff, sticky stuff that they will be applying on the thread. That is the propolis. It's a natural adhesive, and it is wanted on the market by people who are into the production of adhesives and bonding material like sticky stuff and glue, right? So we actually have a sample for furniture glue still in the pipeline. So propolis now at wholesale costs $115, and then at retail price it fetches from $210 going up. So you can actually see that this is something that people haven't begun to embrace. And now our hope is we can get to a point as a country where we don't have to export something in order to buy it back when value has been added. This is something that as communities we can actually do and sell it to the country and improve our gross domestic product. And also in that line, you'd also realize that, look at the price, the wholesale price of honey. It's nearly the same with the wholesale price of tobacco. So this means we are farming tobacco 3 to 4 times a year, except that this time around we are saving trees, because one beehive can last for 10 years. Yeah.
Wow, very insightful and very interesting.